Thug Rose fights like very soon, and it's so interesting how somebody in this women's division that was so beloved and everyone wanted to watch and was so entertaining has become just a shell of herself. She's not even Thug Rose anymore. No one really cares about this fight, and no one really talks about Thug Rose anymore. Why is that? We're going to talk about it. Well, frankly, it's because she's been boring these last couple fights ever since she moved up to the flyweight division. It has been just boring point fight after boring point fight after boring clinch work after boring clinch work. Thug Rose has just not performed to what she used to be, and what she used to be was an absolute killer. Because before the Carla Esparza fight, she had 6 finishes, and the fights that did go to a decision were absolute slugfest. It was proper striking, and it was so beautiful to watch Thug Rose work. Her kickboxing into her overall MMA game was just beautiful to watch. She had the ability to maneuver through all 3 levels of the game and also put some damage on some women. The Joanna 5-round fight was just so good, and let's not talk about the actual upset itself. No one thought Rose was gonna win, and the only person that thought was her, and she had that belief and had that strong moment where she was able to land against Joanna and eventually get her to tap to strikes. She won that strawweight belt at 25 years of age, and it was such a young, bright fighter that became just someone that you wanted to cheer on, someone that you wanted to support. You hear the story of Rose and the backstory of what she's come from, and you want to support that. You want to watch that. You want to watch someone like that succeed. So recently, what the fuck happened? Because we all loved Rose. We were all so ready to watch a Rose fight. We were all so excited to watch a Rose fight. And now it's not really, it's something I'm too excited for, and I think a lot of you guys aren't excited for it either. Ever since the move up to 125, she has been just a very different fighter. She has not really had a lot of finishing upside. She has not gotten a finish or been a part of a finish at all. It has always been decisions, and it has always been unanimous decisions. It hasn't been really close. Either she's winning in these strawweight fights or she is losing, and it is a very obvious unanimous decision. Thug Rose overall has just fought completely different. She had so much vicious intent and had a BJJ game at one point. She had so many submissions on her record just starting in the UFC, and yet she completely abandoned those really, and now is primarily a point striker, even though she had knockout ability. At strawweight, she was one of the more vicious girls at 115. Apart from Zhang Weili, and when those people started arriving, like Zhang Weili and Jessica Andrade, Thug Rose was the finisher. Thug Rose was the person that you did not want to go 5 rounds against, because she was going to find your chin or she was going to find a submission. Now, when you see how Thug Rose fights, there is no question, there is no worry of that happening, because it's a 5-round fight. It's a guaranteed decision. Now, the reason why it's a guaranteed decision is probably because of the coaching. She had wonderful coaches from the start to then Trevor Whitman, and now it seems like she has been solely relying on Pat Barry. And listen, Pat Barry was a great kickboxer and a great UFC fighter for his time. However, you have seen in these recent fights that Thug Rose is not even performing to what the fuck she was. She used to be this killer and marauder, and now you look at this Thug Rose and it's nothing. It's seriously nothing. It is frustrating to watch, because it is someone that is so beloved at one point because of how exciting she was to watch. And in the Carla Esparza fight, one of the more boring fights we have ever watched, we noticed in the corner when Trevor Whitman and Pat Barry were in it that Trevor Whitman wasn't talking.
See it all, keep breathing, and control. You feel good.
Yep.
Everything we expected. You punched her in the head twice, and her forehead is red, and so is her nose and lips.
Yeah.
And you didn't even try to hit her. Keep flowing, Trevor.
Okay, so now you got her
There you go.
in control. Okay, you know the distance now. As she starts to pop her shoulders above her hips, now you can start lead attacking. Right? When she's aggressive up and down, you keep the range. Now we can start applying pressure.
Now, Pat Barry, once again, great UFC fighter, but we're talking about Trevor Whitman. This is one of the best coaches in the world at the time, and still in this world. He is phenomenal with advice and phenomenal with inside boxing tips, and that could have helped her in this Carla Esparza fight. Instead, Pat Barry was just complimenting Rose for what she was doing, and what she was doing was absolutely nothing. I watched the fight again. I watched that Carla Esparza fight. I'd rather get waterboarded than to watch that fight again. It was the most boring fight I have ever watched in my life. And it was so frustrating to hear in the corner Pat Barry go, "Good round, you got it. This was a good round. We're 3-0 up."
This is exactly, you hear the boos? You're doing it right. You're doing it right? You hear the crowd? That's just reassurance.
Yeah.
Just now, everything you did just now, you're staying at 4 and then you're finding the times to sneak in. Do you see the opening when she throws the kick and turns it back to you? It's fine. I just need you to recognize it. There's water.
What are you talking about? Why don't you have some sort of aggression towards your cornerman? You cannot be so sure that you are 3 rounds up in a snooze fest. And if you think about it, that coaching change might definitely be the reason why we have not seen a proper Rose Namajunas, a Thug Rose. A Thug Rose that everyone loved and everyone was so dying to watch because of how exciting it was. Sadly, we're going to have to see if this maybe comes out in her most recent fight or if we see the same thing again. And I promise you that people are going to slowly, and more people are going to slowly fall out of Thug Rose. It was crazy that 8 years ago, we saw the birth of Thug Rose, what everyone started to love. And now at 32, which is technically your prime, or you would consider it's where you should be, your most improved, we have seen a regression. And I can't help but think that's a lot of variables, maybe mentally, or in my opinion, I think it's the coach. When you have Trevor Whitman in there, he should be the main guy talking. He should be the guy giving the advice, and yet it's not him. It's very interesting, and it's slowly leaning more to a Pat Barry corner. I hope Thug Rose can resurge and be, that marauder that she was. We'll see. Another issue could just be the weight. At 125, she might not have the actual finishing ability or the strength to really put any of these girls away. However, if that's the case, I think a cut back down to 115 is very interesting right now. You don't have really any real contenders at strawweight, where if you're 1 win away, you can realistically ask for a title shot against Zhang Weili and be granted it. There's not a lot of these 115 strawweight girls that really compete with Zhang Weili or anyone's really interested in. We have seen Zhang Weili and Rose Namajunas fought in beautiful fights, one being a knockout from Rose, and obviously the 5-round striking fest that we had that was beautiful to watch. Maybe Rose just needs to go down to 115 and have that aggressive finishing power, and it's just a weight thing. However, in my opinion, I think it's the coach. You let me know in the comments what you think. Otherwise, it's been Santi, it's been Studs.